The world of Ice and Fire is one of the most beloved fantasy universes, and for a good reason. Realistic events, full of historical parallels, unmatched level of world building with detailed battles and wars. Welcome to the Wizards and Warriors channel. Allow us to present the first episode of our new series on the history of Westeros, as we show how a Targaryen king's madness led to the bloody rebellion that would change the history of the whole continent. Unlike the Game of Thrones universe where they are a constant source of conflict, in our world you don't have to fight for titles, as the sponsor of this video, Established Titles, provides a unique and fun way to obtain one for yourself or for your loved ones. Established Titles is a project based on a medieval Scottish custom of referring to the landowners as lairds, or lords and ladies in English. They allow you to buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land so that you can call yourself a lord or lady. Established Titles' primary goal is to provide a fun way to preserve biodiversity and woodlands, and to that end, they support charities such as One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, planting a tree with each order. It is the best last-minute gift ever, and a great way to surprise your loved ones. Get a couple pack for you and your partner where you can get adjoining plots of land. Getting this certificate will allow you to officially change your name to Lord or Lady, and get it on your credit cards or plane tickets. Established Titles also provides the Kingdom of Scotland bundles with a 1611 map of Scotland, made by the famous English cartographer John Speed. They have a huge New Year sale right now with up to 80% off. Support our channel and become a Lord or Lady today. Go to establishedtitles.com/wizardsandwarriors or click the link in the description and use the code WizardsandWarriors to get 10% off. Madness and greatness are two sides of the same coin. Every time a new Targaryen is born, the gods toss the coin in the air, and the world holds its breath to see how it will land. Barristan Selmy, A Storm of Swords, Chapter 71. Upon the death of Jaehaerys II in 262 AC, Aerys II Targaryen inherited the throne. His reign began with some promise, as many of the courtiers of his father were replaced by younger men of ambition, among them his childhood friend Tywin Lannister as Hand of the King. Aerys was proudly announcing that he would become the greatest ruler in the history of the kingdom, but even at this early period, his grip on sanity was tenuous. The invasion of Braavos following a dispute with the Iron Bank, and plans to build a new wall hundreds of miles beyond the existing wall in order to expand the kingdom, did not have any basis in reality and were soon abandoned. Despite this, Westeros prospered, and it was often said that it was due to Tywin, sparking the jealousy of Aerys. Their relationship was also damaged when Aerys bemoaned that the king's right of the first night had been abolished during Tywin's marriage, and the latter would never forgive that. Soon, the king started ignoring the impassioned pleas of his hand, acting opposite to Tywin's advice, and then blaming the hand for the emerging problems. In 272 AC, Aerys insulted Tywin's wife Joanna, and then refused the hand's resignation, further embarrassing him. The king's madness abated somewhat with the birth of his son Jaehaerys in 274 AC, but the prince passed away that same year, making the king even more insane. He executed the wet nurse and then his mistresses and her family, blaming the death on them. Another son, Viserys, was born in 276 AC, and Tywin proposed the marriage of his daughter Cersei to the young prince, but the king Aerys rejected the offer, stating Tywin to be a mere servant, and that a servant's daughter would not be a fitting wife to his son. Tywin would remember this. In 277 AC, Lord Denys Darklyn of Duskendale petitioned the king for more autonomy from the crown, but this was refused, and so Darklyn withheld his taxes and invited the king to discuss the matter personally. Tywin advised the king to avoid the meeting, but Aerys wanted to show his independence and went to the meeting. In what would become known as the Defiance at Duskendale, the king's retinue was slaughtered and Aerys taken prisoner. Tywin amassed a large force and besieged Duskendale for 6 months, but it was the brilliant Sir Barristan Selmy who rescued the king. Darklyn surrendered immediately, but the king ordered the execution of every member of House Darklyn, which earned Aerys his moniker, the Mad King. With his deepening paranoia and tendency for violence, Aerys now made use of wildfire to execute his prisoners. He appointed the eunuch Varys as his master of whispers to avoid assassination, which he always believed was looming. Tywin had kept the kingdom afloat during this period. However, when his son Jaime was appointed to the Kingsguard, which meant that he couldn't inherit the title anymore, Tywin finally resigned. The king also worried that his heir, Rhaegar, planned to usurp him, which led the court to split between pro-Aerys and pro-Rhaegar factions, leaving the incompetent new hand, Owen Merryweather, with little room to maneuver. Then in 281 AC came the tourney at Harrenhal, an event that changed the fate of Westeros for generations. Aerys hoped to win back the love of the people, however his frail mental state and horrific appearance had the opposite effect, whereas his son Rhaegar looked every inch the perfect knight, poised to be the great king his father never was. The tournament contained the greatest knights of all the Seven Kingdoms, yet it was Rhaegar who emerged victorious, defeating every opponent he faced. All seemed well, yet the happiness of the day soon evaporated in the face of the prince's actions. Riding past his wife, Elia Martell, Rhaegar crowned Lyanna Stark his Queen of Love and Beauty, to the dismay of everybody. What happened during the next year seemed to be at odds with the personality of the prince, as Rhaegar kidnapped Lyanna and disappeared with her. In response, her eldest brother Brandon, with a retinue of close friends, which included Elbert Arryn, rode to King's Landing, and outside of the royal Red Keep, yelled aloud for Rhaegar to come out and die. Rhaegar was not there, however, and Aerys had the young lord imprisoned on charges of conspiring to murder a member of the royal family. The king ordered the fathers of each of the men in Brandon's retinue to present themselves and answer for their son's actions, but when they did not arrive in time, all were executed apart from Brandon. His father, Rickard Stark, arrived and asked for a trial by combat, to which the Mad King responded that his champion would be fire. Lord Rickard was burned alive with wildfire, while his son, who was strapped to a torture device that strangled him as he tried in vain to save his father, also suffered the same fate. Going even further, word was sent to Elbert's father, Jon Arryn, who was one of the strongest lords of the realm, that he was to send Aerys the heads of Lyanna's brother, Eddard, and her betrothed, Robert Baratheon, who were wards of his domain at this point. Refusing to give up the two young men, Jon Arryn raised his banners in revolt, beginning what was to be known as Robert's Rebellion, or the War of the Usurper to the Targaryens. Ned Stark, who was now the Lord of the North, immediately left the Eyrie to head to Winterfell and raise the banners, while Jon Arryn did likewise in the Vale of Arryn. However, the port of Gulltown remained loyal to the Targaryens, so Ned had to head north by way of the Mountains of Moon. Likewise, this forced Jon Arryn to besiege Gulltown. He was joined by his ward, Robert Baratheon, who had grown into a warrior of immense size and ferocity, wielding his mighty warhammer and inspiring all those around him. The siege quickly turned into an assault, with Robert Baratheon the first man over the wall, ultimately slaying Lord Mark Grafton of Gulltown in single combat. This victory consolidated Jon Arryn's control over the Vale, creating a base of operations from which the rest of the war could be fought. The feats of Robert Baratheon had already begun to gain him much renown, and as he sailed to Storm's End to raise his own forces, many had already begun to view him as a king in waiting. Arriving in the Stormlands, Robert called upon the Stormlords to join the rebellion, and while the majority of the lords flocked to his banner, some resisted. Led by the hand of the king, Owen Merryweather, the Lords Cafarin, Fell and Grandison were to meet at Summerhall, a ruined hold in the Dornish Marches, before marching upon Storm's End. Robert, however, received word of this assembly, and force-marched his men to meet them. The haste at which they moved gave the rebel forces the upper hand, as they were able to face the loyalists one at a time as they arrived, winning all 3 battles, with Robert killing Lord Fell in single combat. Lord Fell's son, alongside the Lords Cafarin and Grandison, were all captured, eventually joining the rebel cause. This battle consolidated Robert's position in the Stormlands, and allowed the young warrior to march against the Reach with no enemy forces to his rear. Leaving his younger brother Stannis to guard Storm's End, Robert moved against the Reach, where the Lord, Mace Tyrell, would amass the largest army in all of the Seven Kingdoms. Attempting to secure his western flank, Robert led his forces against the loyalist holding of Ashford, but would be caught unaware by the vanguard of the Tyrell forces, commanded by the formidable Lord Randyll Tarly. Outmaneuvering Robert, Lord Randyll and his forces swept through the rebel lines, sending the Baratheon men into a rout. In the melee, Lord Catherine was slain by Randyll in single combat, and Robert was forced to withdraw before the main force under Mace Tyrell could arrive. While this was ultimately a Tarly victory, Mace Tyrell would take all the plaudits, despite his own glaring deficiencies as a commander. Tyrion Lannister would later deem this battle to be an inconclusive one, due to Robert's quick withdrawal. However, faced with the sheer numbers which the Tyrells could bring to bear, Robert was forced to move north to join up with his allies. This facilitated the Tyrell invasion of the Stormlands, allowing them to lay siege to Storm's End, commanded by the unyielding Stannis Baratheon, who held the city for close to a year under immensely desperate circumstances. In the meantime, seeing how poorly his hand had performed in comparison to the contingent from the Reach, King Aerys stripped Owen Merryweather of all his lands and titles before exiling him and naming Jon Connington, a friend of Rhaegar, as Hand of the King. Meanwhile, Eddard Stark had also successfully reached Winterfell and raised the Northern Banners, before marching south past the Neck and joining with Jon Arryn. Together, the two men successfully negotiated with Lord Hoster Tully of the Riverlands for his support in the war. With most of the great nobles of Westeros choosing sides, the stage was now set for the decisive battles of the rebellion. In our next episode, we'll talk about these battles. Once again, thanks to Established Titles for sponsoring this video. Established Titles is a perfect last-minute gift for you or your loved ones. It allows you to buy a small plot of land in Scotland and become a lady or a lord as a result. In return, Established Titles plants a tree to protect the pristine forests of our planet. Support our channel and buy yourself a small plot of land in Scotland. They have a huge New Year sale right now with up to 80% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/wizardsandwarriors or click the link in the description and use the code WizardsandWarriors to get 10% off. Make sure you have subscribed and press the bell button. Please consider liking and sharing as it helps immensely, and don't forget to comment. We'll try to read and respond to every comment, as we want to know what you think about this video and which videos you hope to see in the future. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.